I'm also the vice president of the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. So if you were at Entrepreneur Fest last spring, or if you've heard about Blue Gold Roast or Eau Claire, those are all associated with that organization. But today we are going to be talking about my business that I've recently just started. It's called Spark Convos, LLC. So the problem that I identified that I would want to solve with this business, hold on, your faces are blocking my slides. There we go. The first one is being a country divided. I think that is something we all can acknowledge with political, religious, all sorts of division happening within our country, our communities, sometimes even friend groups or families. And there's also been an increasing rate of loneliness happening all across the country. I believe it is 7% increase in the ages of 16 to 24. 7% increase in those who say that they're either lonely most of the time or almost all of the time. And that also has bled into having conversations with those around us. So having meaningful conversations that don't end in conflict, or having those conversations that you actually listen to the person instead of just trying to get your point across, has become rather rare. And then it has also taken an impact on the nation's mental health. A lot of issues surrounding that with those problems that I just mentioned. So what is the solution? Obviously, the slide deck is slightly outdated since there's more than 2 people in this picture and they're not practicing social distancing. But the solution is Spark Convos, LLC, the business, which is an online organization that is committed to sparking in-person connections through conversations. So our products and our resources really encourage people to focus on a topic or a phrase or a belief that they can both align with, instead of focusing on those things that they may have different. So how are we doing this? This is an example of actually one of our competitors, but it's a t-shirt brand. So we are starting with t-shirts. And like I said, this is an example from one of our competitors that's going to look similar to what we will be producing. But each product, again, starting with t-shirts, so each t-shirt will come with a little card in the packaging, and that card will have different conversation starters, different questions on it that you can either ask yourself, kind of self-development topics, or that you can then start a conversation with someone else. So for an example, one of the shirts says, "Know your worth." And with that t-shirt, you get the card with questions about, do you have self-confidence, things like that. And then also questions that you can ask someone else regarding encouraging them to have self-confidence, them to really make sure people are treating them how they deserve to be treated. Moving on to our target market. So we have a couple different segments that we are going to be marketing to. Overarching target market is going to be individuals within the ages of 16 to 35. This is mainly just because that's kind of the demographic that is mostly buying t-shirts. So I do really want to branch out into more age groups than that, because I think the problems that I talked about are prevalent at any age, not just from 16 to 35. We also are targeting the segments of women, minorities, the LGBTQ plus community, as well as people who are religious or spiritual. And especially with the minorities and the LGBTQ plus community, really targeting those demographics because they generally do have a higher barrier of entry to conversations or connecting with people around them, especially just based on maybe first impressions, maybe they look or have a different lifestyle than you. That can all very commonly be taken as a reason not to connect with someone. And so really targeting those demographics so that we can lower that barrier. For competitors, it is a t-shirt business. It's not a very unique product by any means, but we are differentiating from all the different competitors out there, hundreds of thousands of t-shirt brands. The top two, or the top half of the slide here on the right side, those 2 images are from a Christian brand, and then the 6 images on the left, those are also a different Christian brand. Similar to what we are trying to do, but again, these two brands are targeting specifically Christian and not really the other demographics that I talked about in the last slide. I also would like to branch out a little bit more in the marketing and the branding with this. A lot of Christian brands kind of follow a very almost cookie cutter kind of Christian image that not everyone who identifies as that looks like that. So I've talked to a lot of people who maybe don't identify with those brands because they don't see themselves represented. So that's something I really want to push forward, is kind of really having a lot of representation of people who may not look or dress or think alike. On the bottom half, so on that left side, I just put in a Google search just for the LGBTQ community, but this really goes with anything. Any sort of belief that you align with, any phrase, you can look up and find a t-shirt with that on it, either on Etsy, on Amazon, eBay, Google, wherever. But again, we're differentiating from those other super accessible options, because when you buy a product with us, you're buying the community, you're buying the experience, you're buying the resources, you're buying the brand, which you don't get with a random Google search. And then on the bottom right corner, we have another brand that is called Naturebacks, and they are, again, a similar t-shirt company and t-shirt brand, but again, we will be differentiating from them with our different target markets and segments, as well as with the branding that we are using. Some of the challenges that I have been facing with starting this business used to be time. Full-time student, 2 internships, a job, active on campus. That's no longer an issue, sadly. But now I'm left with the finances. When I first kind of started looking at all of this, how I was going to start buying inventory, all of that, I definitely overestimated the amount of my personal income I could allot to this business, which turns out to be like $10. Not quite, I'm exaggerating, but I definitely overestimated how much of my personal money I could put into this. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, about how I'm working through all that. And then the second thing that I've been working on a lot is clarity. So whenever I tell people about my idea, they love it after like a half an hour of explaining it, because there's just so many layers to it. It's a brand, it's a store, it's a social media platform. There's the overarching topic of wanting to start conversations, but then I also have a lot of different values I'm trying to push through. So there's just a lot that I'm trying to accomplish. So really trying to market it in a clear way that I can do that elevator pitch and people really understand what I'm going for. So that's been a challenge that I've been pivoting a lot throughout this process. And then the last one is conflicting markets. So this especially is prevalent with the religious segment and then also the LGBTQ plus segment. So whenever I tell people that those are 2 of my target markets, a lot of times they're like, those don't overlap, that's not a thing. Whereas instead of thinking like I'm targeting this segment and I'm targeting this segment, instead I'm really trying to target the market that's already overlapping, which people don't really understand that there is a target market there, which is why I think that's one of the parts I'm most excited about with this, is because I know that that is a community from what I've seen in my past work experience, as well as just from researching. I know that is a segment that is not being served, or a target market that's completely untapped. And so kind of not only figuring out how to target that market in a efficient and effective way, but also getting people to understand that that's a market in general. So how we're growing and how we are overcoming some of these challenges. Like I talked about the finances, I've been applying for a lot of different grants, different grant programs locally as well as nationally. I'm not super eager to jump on a loan program, especially with the economy situation that's going on right now. As well as I'm a student, I have a lot of other expenses happening right now. So I would love to just kind of bootstrap, buy inventory, sell it, kind of keep slowly snowballing it that way. And then also getting grants to help out with that, with those startup costs. And then as I grow, hopefully getting into some more bigger funding through loans and that sort of thing. For support, I could not have been doing this without the support I've gotten from the UW Eau Claire entrepreneurship program. Being involved in that has not only given me skills to start this business, but it's also given me resources and a lot of confidence. Having that community behind me definitely has given me a lot of confidence to start this business. I have also been working with the Small Business Development Center as well as Western Dairyland, their Women's Business Center. And I also am excited to announce that I am in the first cohort for Venture Home, which is through WISIS. I have their little logo right there. And then that's being held at CoLab. So if you haven't heard about this, it's a business accelerator program, which is supposed to be starting in April, but with all this crazy stuff, I would not be surprised if it got sadly moved back. But I'm very excited to be in that group with all of the resources that come with that. And then for expanding in the future, like I talked about a little bit, branching out into other merchandise, not just t-shirts, and then also with social media, really building that platform online, as well as creating content for our website. This is going to look like a blog, some different resources, some different maybe courses. I've also gotten some suggestions to do events, either in person or maybe like Google Hangouts or Zoom meetings, things like that, either like a dinner with the theme of starting conversations or something to that effect, which I'll be playing with as we get bigger, which will probably be hosted in Eau Claire. So look for that in 6 months to a year, possibly. Thank you all so much for joining me this morning. I know this is definitely not what I expected when I signed up to speak at 1 Million Cups, but from going for so many weeks, I definitely am excited to hear all the feedback from all of you, kind of looking at it as almost a focus group in a sense, just to get a lot of feedback, answer questions, make sure that, like I said, that clarity is there for what I want the brand to be.
All right, so feel free to use that raise your hand feature if you have questions for Mary Kate. We can make this nice and interactive here. If you don't feel comfortable speaking or your webcam/microphone isn't working, feel free to drop some questions in the chat and we can ask those out of there as well. So that raise your hand feature is going to be in the participants tab. So you can click that open. Got one from Phil here.
Raising my hand here.
Yes.
Mary Kate, thank you for being the first trendsetter of this format. We really appreciate it. I know it's not easy, and I know it's not the same as being face-to-face, but and a shout out to Adam for pushing this and this idea. So I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to, but I can get a hold of you on a side note and we can talk. My first question is, and this is kind of a selfish question for the chamber, but, and maybe Ann, you're involved in this too, but we're going to be looking for new interns, specifically seniors in this realm, entrepreneurship marketing, next semester. So fall semester of 20. So just to put that on your radar, I specifically am looking for a entrepreneurship and marketing intern.
Okay.
It's a paid internship. So just be aware of it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're looking for anything in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So, yep.
All right, I've got Doug here.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I also wanted to echo Phil's comment to thank you for being the first guinea pig. It's brave of you to do that and challenging to be in this kind of format. I've been sort of racking my brain in terms of questions for you because it just seems like with the virus situation where everything is thrown up in the air, but I do want to say that I think the idea of sparking conversations and addressing growing loneliness, all those kinds of things is really worthwhile. I think we have to we're social animals, and to find a way for us to connect maybe in new ways is really, really important. So I encourage you to do that, and I like the idea, but I get it, having once marketed and sold t-shirts myself a long, long time ago, it can be kind of a challenging market, and especially now, trying to get in there. One of the things that we learned had to do with price point, but we were trying to get into major stores, from Walmart to whomever, and it was really hard to produce a product that was low price enough that they could make a turn on it.
Right.
So again, I'm not being very helpful to you, but I really want to encourage you and say thanks again for your willingness to take on this format.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I've got Laura here.
Hey, Mary Kate. So just context is that I teach the SBDC course that Mary Kate was in. So I knew a little bit about the business, but it's nice to see it all put together and see the presentation. One of the questions I had is you mentioned this intersection between two target markets, so Christian and LGBTQ+. Two questions on it. One, have you thought about maybe starting with that as your niche? Just because it's so specific and you kind of identify it as a gap of people not seeing that, them being represented in some sort of brand. And then two, have you spoken with anybody who identifies with both of those categories and gotten any feedback from them?
Yes. So first, yes, I have thought about that being the niche. I don't necessarily want to limit myself just to that. So I think that's why I've kind of looked at it as one segment of my target market. But I do think that that's one of the niches that is the most untapped. So I think that would be a smart business move, just to go in the direction that most people aren't going. I have also interviewed a religious leader in the community who is in the LGBTQ community. So her feedback was very helpful. She also has a couple kids that are in the teen program with the, I think it's the LGBTQ Chippewa Valley Community Center. So her kids are in that program, which I was planning on setting up some sort of focus group with those teens and with that organization, which obviously has not really worked out right now. But I have done some interviews with people that are in kind of both of those segments, and that's been very helpful, because it's one thing for me to be like, oh yeah, like I know this is a thing, but to have that validated through people who are in both, that's been very helpful. So yes, to both.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, we got Anne here.
Hey, hi Mary Kate, great job.
Thank you.
So good to see you and all today, and my shout out to Adam too for pushing us in this direction, and for you for being first. That's great. I loved your presentation. I've been privileged, I'll say, to watch you as you pivot and keep forming this, and it's fun to see how you have come along that path and to watch where you will keep going. One thing you mentioned, I think it was on the challenge slide, something about social media platform. I just wondered if you could just add a little bit more about that. I'm curious what you envision and timing of that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of a big thing with any business, whether or not it's online, is really having that prevalent platform on social media. So I've definitely been starting with Instagram. I just started a Facebook like a couple days ago, and then I'm thinking of also going through Pinterest as well. And that's just going to be a way, like kind of in a sense, another revenue stream, even though that probably the Instagram portion probably won't make money essentially, but it will be a way to market, get the brand out. And that's really a popular kind of platform for people to follow those inspirational quotes or that sort of thing. People really kind of align with those things. They like filling their feed with those kind of images. And so that's going to be really prevalent for the marketing, which I'm not completely only going to market like through social media, because I think there's a lot of other platforms that are useful as well, but just growing that into hopefully something that can be national, not just in Eau Claire or in the Midwest, something that is an easy way for people to hear about us through social media.
Sounds awesome. Thanks.
All right, I've got me, and then I've got Emily after her.
Hi, I really like your idea of sparking conversations and doing all of this. My one question for you is that where do you source your products? And because I feel like after this whole thing, if you have anything that is locally made in USA, people would really love that. And lately, we've been really conscious about where our products are coming from as well. Like, is it ethically sourced, or is it like really good material and things like that? So I think that's just that one question, like, where would you source your products?
Definitely, yeah. So I have been, as far as the screen printing, that will be done in Eau Claire. I can't even remember the name of the place that I picked right now, but it's the one in Banbury Place. They don't know it yet, but I'm going to be working with them. And so ethical and like ethical fashion and all of that, I'm actually very passionate about. So it's kind of going to be something that I think will have to come in the later as I grow, just because it is more expensive. But that definitely is something that I'm very passionate about. I would love to either source from ethical t-shirt brands, or either in the US too, something like that. And you're right, with all of that, what's happening, people would really want to support local places. But that is definitely something that I want to do as soon as possible. But with the increased cost, I would rather start my business, start making a profit, and then kind of go to that higher quality. But yes, that is definitely something I am thinking about a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Emily, you're on.
Hello, it's so good to see everyone. Okay, so two things. I will echo Laura's challenge to you to really like pick your niche, because I think that will really help you when you're trying to, because you are going into a market that has lots of things already happening. And so if you can really like carve out, like, this is my window, that's really going to help you, I think. Because so in like the last 2 weeks, I've done the same thing, and it was very freeing to just go like, like, these are the people that I'm going to be looking for. Hey, ladies, please. Sorry. Okay. And then the other thing, I'm going to move because this is not working, and you all don't need to hear me yelling at my kids right now. So the other thing is, have you considered having your t-shirts be like a byproduct of something else? So thinking like you're going to have some other product, like maybe if you really want to have the conversations stuff happening, like having classes on your website or something like that, where it's like, if you're trying to have this conversation, like a difficult conversation, this is what it could look like. And so you have either like free content or like a paid class or something like that. And then as like an add-on, it is your t-shirt that could in itself be its own thing, but that you're also like offering some other like a different value to it. It's not just the t-shirt, it's like the t-shirt represents this like whole other thing, right, that you're trying to promote or focus.
Yeah, definitely. So that's actually what I had kind of thought about starting in the beginning, was starting an online platform and then making t-shirts to go along with that platform. But the thing with that is I feel like it's a lot harder to start an online platform than it is to just start a small t-shirt thing and then get that rolling and then build more on that social media side. And that also, you have to get pretty big to make money on social media and with a platform or with a blog. And so I just thought of the revenue would start coming in first with the t-shirts and then build the platform around the t-shirts. But that was the original plan, was to build a platform and then I could sell some t-shirts on the side. But just with the way that those revenue streams work, I think it would be a little easier to start that revenue streams with the t-shirts and then get that content going. But I definitely have thought of kind of eventually maybe pivoting to having it mostly the online platform, having the classes, having the resources, and then just having a store on the side.
Yeah. So and I agree with you that it's overwhelming to think I have to build the whole thing, because I'm there too. But there are websites that you can build, like, just think like one class, one sort of thing, or maybe you have, like, on your website you have 2 or 3 PDFs of, like, how do you have a Thanksgiving where, like, you can have a meaningful conversation with your family without people, like, throwing food, or like, you can be kind of fun about it, but, like, give people ideas.
Right.
And then so then you've got those, like, free resources, and then maybe you have, like, one class. So maybe I really love your free resources, but I'm willing to spend, like, I don't know, $50, 100, 150, 300, whatever you want. But maybe it's like, here's some more intensive training with you and some other experts. I happen to know a communication expert who would be happy to help you in some capacity.
Yeah.
And then you have from that, like, and all along the way, it's the, like, buy the t-shirts, because that they will help you have those conversations, or, like, spark those conversations. So I mean, I get that it's a lot, but just know that, like, you don't have to, and I forget that all the time too, like, oh my god, no, just, like, right, like, one thing, just, like, to get you started. And then after 5 years, maybe it grows into resources and classes, but, like, it just has to start with
Right.
one.
Yeah, for sure. I like
Okay,
that. Sometimes
keep
it's like,
rocking.
yeah, thank you.
All right, I've got one here unmuted. Go for it. Maybe. PSC.
Hi, Mary Kate. Congratulations on all of the hard work you've done so far. I'm very impressed with your ideas, and you're very brave, as you stated, to go into a market that seems to be flooded, but there's always room for a new idea, for a fresh concept. I love the conversation part. Question, are you going to be Are you a designer as well? Are you going to be outsourcing these t-shirt designs? How are you going to work that?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Like the example that I put on, it's just a couple words. So those, I'm just picking a font, picking the color that I want. Doesn't take too much design skill. Some of the other designs that I have in mind will need a little bit more of like a graphic designer's touch to it. And that with my logo, I had a friend from the university do my logo for me. So I know that she would be willing to help me out with any of those kind of more complex designs. But then also working with almost every screen printing or t-shirt printing company, they do some sorts of graphic design as well. So kind of doing a balance of what I can design, I will, if it's just a couple words, but then as we get into some other designs, I will probably be looking elsewhere.
All right, Laura.
One other question was just, you talked about kind of comparing yourself to the Etsy, Amazon, Google. What's your plan for selling it? Do you want to sell it yourself, or are you going to leverage a different platform?
Yeah, so I looked into a lot of different options with that. With Etsy, it's kind of blurred lines because it really is supposed to be like homemade products. And since I'm not printing my own, I think I could kind of get past that and still sell through Etsy. But I've looking at some of those different things, just with all the fees attached to it. If I want to grow, it's a lot easier to do that through Shopify or those kinds of platforms instead of eBay, Etsy. Whereas like once I start getting bigger, those fees would really add up. So I am going through Shopify.
Okay, so that's on your own website then?
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yes. The other thing was I was planning on doing Etsy just because then people are already going to Etsy. I didn't have to get traffic to my website, but I think in the long run, it will be more beneficial to go through my own platform, even if in the beginning it might be slower getting traffic. I think, again, in the long run, it'll pay off.
Yeah, I would say it's something to think about too, because you could start on something like Etsy unless
Right.
there's rules against selling it in two places,
Right.
and just consider that fee as kind of like your marketing budget
Mhm.
because the audience and your target market is already on the platform. So you could try both,
Both,
test
yeah.
it out.
That's a good point. Thank you.
All right, I got Ray here. Oh. There we go.
Sorry about that. Quick question. I was wondering about how, maybe kind of an idea question. Are you intending to be sort of like the face of a brand where you're an advocate for these conversations and you're really out there as sort of the personal champion? Kind of, influencer is the sort of the wrong way to think about it, I guess, but just that this is your thing. This isn't just an impersonal website with resources and things, but this is you, and you're really driving it. Could you kind of talk about how you're thinking about that?
Yeah, that's absolutely the plan. I think that brands do need that personality. I think that people, if they see me, they can kind of identify with me more than just, oh, this is just some random Instagram page that's trying to make money. And so I really do want to make it personal. And I can do that through the posts on either social media or on Instagram, but also maybe doing like stories. I think like Instagram stories, that sort of thing, kind of those more not professional, but those more casual in casual environment. So it can kind of be along the lines of, I'm a student starting a business, like I'm doing homework, but I'm doing this, really making it kind of relatable for that demographic, but then also, again, making it very personal. So people feel like they not only know the brand, but they can know me as well. And then also once we go into kind of the more resources, some of them could be written by me or some of my friends. So I really do want it to be a very personal thing. And I do kind of, maybe not influencer, but I do want to be associated with the brand for sure.
All right, we got Elaine here.
Hi, very good job. And like everyone else said, thank you for being the first to do this. And of course, thank you to Adam. He's kicking butt virtually.
Yeah.
Of course. I really liked that question from Ray. I think it is important that there's a face. It's not just someone in the atmosphere talking. I just wanted to show you, I just recently purchased something and they send this really cool card with like a handwritten thing. And I loved it so much I put it on my fridge. Work or what? But I think it's a really, really nice touch. And I'm glad you're thinking along those lines. I think currently in the next coming generations, that's what they're looking for, authenticity and genuineness. And I think it sounds like that's exactly what you're trying to bring. So I'm really excited about this. So that's all I'm going to say, because someone might scream soon. So you might want to unmute me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mary Kate, are you physically selling in any stores in the city at all?
Not yet. That's a lot of this has been put on hold. One, because again, like I talked about time, I underestimated how much time I would have, and now that's not a problem, but now there's a lot of other problems going on. So that I'm not selling at any physical stores yet, but I have thought about doing that, kind of partnering with some of the places around town to get people to know about it, because that is another thing with it being an online brand. It's still about community, so I really do want it to be prevalent in the Eau Claire community and not just a national thing or an online thing. So I would love to either sell at the farmers market this summer or do some different things like that, but not yet.
Yeah, I think too, Red's Mercantile just comes to mind right away because they often host pop-up events that are associated with particular products or particular brands. And that could be a really good way to bridge that gap, kind of that Emily and Laura were talking about doing events alongside what the physical product actually is, and doing maybe like a social mixer at Reds while your t-shirts are being highlighted on display.
Definitely.
So just a potential option.
Yeah.
We've got Elaine, then Brooke, then Emily here.
Y'all hear that? Cool. That was just a toy falling, echoing what Adam said, the event thing. Just seeing, are there any events you want to organize? So you're the main thing. This is kind of how you introduce your brand and what you've got going on through an event, like a physical space. Virtual spaces are great, obviously, but having the physical space within the city, whether it's a pop-up, kind of like Adam said. Do you have plans for any of that?
Yeah, definitely down the line. I have thought about pop-up shops just because I wouldn't have to be paying rent. I can transport my products from my apartment or whatever, wherever I'm storing them, and put them into kind of like an actual store for even just an afternoon or something like that. So I really love that idea. I've also had suggestions of doing like a dinner, and then having conversation starters on the table. I think that would be a really fun one, or like a breakfast or something. And I don't know if any of you have heard of, I think it's So Far, maybe? I don't even know. It's like the music thing that people are doing. So I think that could be really cool, is kind of partnering with different really cool spaces around Eau Claire that maybe people don't always go in, and kind of having it kind of move around from place to place. And then with that, I would love to really have a lot of media associated with that. So either film it or like film conversations or something like that, so that it can still be online as well, but then having those events. So I've definitely thought about that. And then down the road, I would love to have kind of like the office space, but then also have like, not necessarily like a co-working space, but like having the desks, and then having just more of the setup of collab is what I'm trying to say. Whereas like I have my team, we're all working, and then we have the space where we can invite people in, sit on the couches, have a conversation, film it, and put it up online so people can kind of feel like they're sitting in the Spark living room type thing. I would love to do something like that.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but I had something else. I'll message you later, or since you're part of Lunch Home, I can find you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Go for it, Brooke.
Good morning. I put the video on myself so you can all see my lovely bed head, so sorry about that. But Mary Kate, I just want to again commend you on what you're doing, and kind of to Doug's point earlier, I think now is a phenomenal time to launch what you're doing, even though the timing sucks and everything about this situation sucks. I think right now people are looking for those conversation starters other than, hey, how many people do you know that are, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like the coronavirus is the only topic that people are talking to each other about. And I saw a meme that's like, I don't even know what it said, but it was like, well, do you have something else to talk about other than this? So I think too right now, more than ever, people who either don't have a strong tie to faith or are now looking for that tie to faith to give them something hopeful for. To your point about launching your Facebook and your Instagram, I think now is the best time for you to capitalize, is very much the incorrect term for this, but to really be that launching pad, because people need what you're offering right now.
Totally. Yeah, and I've definitely been doing that on my Instagram because it is just such easy content. It's not like, how can I connect to my audience? It's every single person is going through similar or the same thing right now, like where every single person is struggling with this. And so it's been very easy to think of like, what should I post about today? Probably something positive about the current situation. So I think you're definitely correct, and it's strangely a good time to be launching at least like the social media side. And then because people are kind of looking for those resources of like, how can I think about something else to talk about? Like, this is the only conversation happening right now on the news and everywhere across the world. And so that's definitely something that I have been not taking advantage of, but just trying to have my part in kind of lifting people up during this very strange time. Definitely.
All right, go for it, Emily.
I don't remember what I was going to say because 3 other things have happened since I had my thought. So I will email you, but
Good. No problem.
you're awesome.
Thanks.
All right, Anne, you're on.
Yeah, so what was I going to say? Oh, I know. Okay. What I was thinking about is, your vision is so large, which I love, and the demographics, branch out into so many areas. I was sitting here feeling a little overwhelmed for you. Like, how do you build this amazing thing that the world needs, perhaps? And so I guess just planning a thought about, maybe back to one of Emily's earlier ones on narrowing. So rather than maybe thinking of it as I've got to narrow my grand vision, which everybody, well, many are loving, to which little segment should I pick and kill it? Just, find one intersection and create one t-shirt and have people put pictures of themselves on social media wearing that t-shirt just as your like minimum viable product. I'm going to do this one small thing, not letting go of all the rest, but just sort of, okay, that'll be first. We'll see how that goes. We'll learn from that. That'll be that overlap segment or whatever you pick. And then next we'll try something else, because otherwise it just is overwhelming me as I listen. But that's just a thought of maybe how to get going on this without being overwhelmed by it all.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a good point, because I would rather, because obviously I really do want to target all these different segments, but I'd rather target one and then be successful enough to get to the others instead of trying to do it all at once and then not being able to do any. So I think that's a very good point.
I'm going to flip over to Emily here. Just pointing out over in the chat, Laura mentioned she's seen businesses using the term serve versus the term capitalize, which I think definitely adds a sense of authenticity a little bit more to your product and kind of your service than saying capitalize. So good suggestion over there. All right, Emily.
Okay, I remembered what I was going to say.
Awesome.
Do you know if there are any national organizations that deal with the overlap of Christianity and the LGBTQ community? Because that might be another place to sort of get involved with like an event or a social media feed or something to like, once you have, I like Anne's idea of like the one t-shirt that you're going to throw all your weight behind. Because when I was a student there, like whatever it feels like a long time ago today. But the shirts that were really big at the time said like gay ? Fine by me. And that went like viral. I know that on our campus we ordered, it was like 1,700 people and we sold 500 t-shirts at the time. That was in like 2004 or 5, something like that. But it was the one t-shirt, right? And it was in multiple colors, and it was just like, thankfully it wasn't Comic Sans, but it was some kind of like typewriter type logo. And that like, it was, so what the point is, like, it was more about the message. It wasn't so much about the like the beautifully designed graphics or something like that. So I think that there's definitely something there that is worth chasing after a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with. Back to the is there a national organization? At first I was like, oh, I'm not sure, like I haven't looked into that, but actually InterVarsity is one that is international, I believe, and I don't know if it's like this on every campus, but at least at Eau Claire they have within their small groups that they break up into, they do have one specifically for LGBTQ students, which again I've been meaning to connect with, but it's been a little crazy now that we're off campus. But that is one organization that, again, I don't know if they're nationally like supportive of that, but I know that on Eau Claire campus they are. But I think that's a really good point of like picking that one that goes viral and then building a business around that instead of trying to sell multiple products. So I really, really like that idea. Thank you.
I think too, maybe looking at the different denominations within the Christian faith that are supportive of the LGBTQ community could be another area that you could explore as far as finding a national rep or a national organization to talk to about.
Right.
Brand.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. That's very true.
All right. Are there any more questions? It doesn't look like we have any more hands raised or any questions in the chat. All right. So usually we give away a mug. Obviously, we can't give mugs without coming within 6 feet of one another. So Mary Kate, you get a virtual mug today. And then we have invited Mary Kate and all of our presenters that are going to be presenting virtually with us over the next couple of weeks to present in person, if they so choose, when we all get back to one another. So feel free, if we want to have this conversation again, to reattend and keep asking these great questions. We can maybe get an update from Mary Kate in a couple months on where we're at. All right. Well, with that, I guess that ends our first 1 Million Cups virtual session. So we will see you all back here next week at 9 a.m., same time, same format. Next week, we'll have Speck of Dust Theater Company talking about their new nonprofit that's popping up here in Eau Claire. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mary Kate, and have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.